At the midpoint on the journey of life, I found myself in a dark forest, for the clear path was lost.
Certainly. I'm Jonathan Knight, the executive producer and creative director for Dante's Inferno, and I'm here to talk about the game. The big idea behind the game was really to take part one of the Divine Comedy, which is commonly referred to as Dante's Inferno, and truly adapt it for a video game. And it's kind of a big, bold, ambitious idea, but as I kind of read the poem and studied up on it, it just became clear to me that to do a game about the afterlife or the sort of medieval kind of worldview of hell and sort of what people thought it would be like to go to hell from that medieval period, that there was just no better source for what that would be like than Dante's Inferno. I mean, he spent the better part of his life kind of crafting this fantastical journey full of very vivid descriptions. And so the basic premise is that we're going to take part one and turn it into a game. There's so much sort of pre-work that's done. I mean, Dante Alighieri is most famous for basically mapping hell. You can't pick up a copy of the book or read an article about it or go online without seeing somebody's schematic or somebody's drawing of the 9 circles and the order and where you go in and where you come out, and because he described it in such detail as if it was a very real place, everybody's immediately drawn and has been through the centuries to sort of mapping it out in a schematic. And so there was just no reason to not build on top of that, otherwise we're not doing the poem. I think where the challenges come in are, like I said, not a lot happens. There's not a lot of action, and we want to make an action game because it's a video game and you want to kill demons and it should be really exciting and thrilling and kind of heart-pumping action throughout the game, and that's the kind of game that we want to make, set in Dante's vision of hell. Our hero has a lot more to him than the Dante of the poem. Our Dante is inspired by that Dante, but he's got a much darker past of kind of bad choices and sort of moral ambiguity, and that stuff's going to come back to haunt him in hell. I think the second thing is that Lucifer has a much bigger part in the game, which I think people will be happy about. He's a big part of that mythos, and hell is, after all, his kingdom. And then the last thing is, obviously, there'll be a lot less talking and a lot fewer lines from the poem in the game. It's sort of an abridged version of it, but most of the the dialogue and the narration that you're going to hear in the game does come from the poem. So our Dante is, he's a veteran of the Crusades. He's a sort of weary warrior who's come home to marry his fiancée, sort of put his past behind him, and she's been waiting for him to come home from the wars. And he comes home and he finds that she's been murdered. This is Beatrice, and we don't know why, and we'll sort of find out in the game about how and why she was murdered. But her soul sort of rises out of her body and is seduced and kidnapped by Lucifer and dragged through the gates of hell, and Dante chases them because really I think what separates him from many video game characters is that he fundamentally fights for love, and it's kind of the one good thing in his life is this woman who waited for him, who he was happy with before he went off to the wars, and now he's kind of screwed up his whole life and he just wants to get that back. And that's why he fights. So there's a lot of creatures in hell, big and small. We're doing a bunch of, you would expect really there to be, kind of creatures of epic scale. We've got some pretty big creatures that you would, I think, consider to be a kind of a boss character from another game that he doesn't just kill them, he actually kills their rider. They come in with riders on top of them, sort of demon riders, and then Dante can actually climb up, kill the rider, and then take control of the beast, and then kind of wreak havoc. So that's a really fun mechanic that we'll use throughout the game. I think we're going to have a nice, menu, a nice kind of salad bar of enemies in the game, if you will. Certainly you want your kind of, just like in the poem, I mean, that, the idea of demons is a very old idea, and so we certainly have kind of Lucifer's fallen angel class, his kind of demon class of characters. One of the concept artists that we're working with is Wayne Barlow, who has designed creatures for the Hellboy movies. He's Harry Potter. He's one of the great concept artists working in Hollywood today, and he was one of the first guys that we signed up to help us, with some early kind of creative exploration on creature design. And I would say I can think of a couple that we were afraid to hang up on the wall of our own office, much less actually put into the game. So maybe we'll do like a book one day of those images. But yeah, some of them were a little over the line. I mean, that's been one of the most challenging and like kind of fun parts of the project, is really designing the environments. We started with Limbo. That's what we showed today. Limbo by its nature is one of the tamer environments of hell, although it's still going to be pretty hellish, with like bodies raining from the sky and hordes of the damned kind of amassing in the distance and to the giant boat and being ferried across the river. And the whole thing will have sort of a foreboding feel to it, culminating in this high intensity boss fight with King Minos, the judge of the damned. As we then kind of go into the lower 8 circles, which is like lust, gluttony, greed, anger, heresy, fraud, violence, and treachery, you can expect it to get more hellish as we go along. I mean, that's the core principle of the poem, is that it gets more hellish, and so we're certainly achieving that. And we just don't want to give away too much at this point, but we're definitely, from an art direction standpoint, looking at how each circle can have its own kind of unique environment, its own unique punishments, its own unique enemies in many cases, and suffice it to say that I think it'll really feel like a journey, from a continuous journey from the surface of the earth to the bottom pits of hell. We've been talking about Dante's Inferno, the action-adventure game from Electronic Arts, being developed here at the Redwood Shores studio, developing for PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 simultaneously. And no release date yet. We know that we're at least a year away, and the focus right now is just making the best game possible, and we'll figure out when it's ready.